There was this guy at the office who lived for spreading rumors about female coworkers. If a woman wore a bodycon dress, he'd smirk and make a crude joke about what she must be like after hours. If another woman got promoted with a raise, he'd claim she earned it by getting too close to the boss. He made it his hobby to label people, shame them, and then act like it was all harmless fun. Then he saw me leaving work in a Bentley, and jealousy ate him alive. Suddenly, he was telling anyone who would listen that I had 3 sugar daddies. He said it loudly, with that proud little grin, like he'd uncovered a scandal and couldn't wait to be congratulated for it. When I stopped reacting, he escalated. He started watching me. Following me? Like my life was a show he was entitled to. And then, one evening, he crossed a line he couldn't walk back from. I was driving fast because there was a pregnant woman in labor in my back seat. She was hunched forward, one hand braced against the door, the other gripping her belly so tightly her knuckles were white. Her face had gone pale, and every few seconds she let out a strained breath that told me we were running out of time. "Just hang on," I said, voice tight, eyes flicking between the road and the rearview mirror. "We're almost there." Her name was Pearl Anderson. And she wasn't just anyone. On the way to the hospital, a beat-up Volkswagen cut me off once. Then twice. Then a third time, deliberate, aggressive, like the driver was enjoying himself. I was in a rush, so I tried to avoid making it worse. I changed lanes carefully. I slowed where I had to. I swallowed my anger because I didn't have room for it. But my patience only seemed to encourage him. Bang. He braked hard in front of me and forced me to a complete stop. My whole body went cold. Pearl made a broken sound in the back seat, and panic shot through me like electricity. I rolled down my window, ready to shout, until I got a good look at his face. Dylan Pierce. That same Dylan from work. The one who loved figuring women out. The one who'd built his personality around tearing people down. He stepped out of his VW with a cigarette hanging from his mouth, swaggering like the street was his stage. He glanced at my car, saw the logo, and his smile widened, smug, mocking, certain he had an audience. Driving like that, he drawled, loud enough for nearby pedestrians to hear, "You got a rich guy waiting somewhere? Don't keep your client waiting." The commotion drew attention fast. People turned. Phones lifted. A small crowd started to form the way crowds always do when they smell drama. "This is insane," someone muttered. "A VW picking a fight with a Bentley? He must have a death wish," another person said, half laughing. I'd had enough. I pushed open my door and stepped out, forcing my voice to stay controlled. "Dylan," I said sharply, "this is an emergency. Move your car. Right now." He didn't even flinch. He leaned in, eyes glittering with satisfaction, and raised his voice. "Emergency?" he repeated. "Sure. Your emergency is meeting your sugar daddy, right?" A few people snickered. Dylan fed off it like oxygen. "Of course," he went on, gesturing toward my car like he was presenting evidence. "How else would a regular office employee afford a Bentley?" The crowd shifted. Admiring looks at the car turned into suspicious stares aimed at me. Someone whispered something ugly. Another person laughed like it was the funniest thing they'd heard all day. My hands curled into fists at my sides. But behind me, Pearl let out another strained breath, longer this time, shakier. She was clutching her belly, face drawn tight with pain. If I didn't get her to the hospital soon, someone could get seriously hurt. Seeing me stay quiet, Dylan got bolder. He stepped closer, his voice rising, spitting out words meant to humiliate. "What's wrong?" he taunted. "Cat got your tongue? You looked so tough a second ago. Come on, tell everyone how you got that Bentley. Share your secrets." The crowd murmured, eager and judgmental. Their stares burned into my skin. It felt like the air itself got heavier. I took a steady breath and stared Dylan down. "Whether my money is any of your business is debatable," I said, voice low and firm. "But what's not debatable is this: your wife is in the car. She's in labor. Move. Now." For a heartbeat, he actually froze. Then he laughed, loud, sharp, convinced I was bluffing. "Please," he scoffed. "My wife's due date isn't for weeks. You think I'm stupid? Iris, you're so desperate you're using my wife as a prop. His eyes narrowed, and something twisted behind them, an idea that made him grin again. Fine, he said, spreading his arms like he was making a generous offer. I'll move if you admit, right here, in front of everyone, that you've been selling yourself for that car. A ripple ran through the crowd, shock, excitement, that awful curiosity people get when they think they're about to witness someone's downfall. Dylan turned to them, voice booming. Listen up. This woman is a gold digger. Remember her face. If you're dating, be careful. She'll drain you dry. More laughter. More phones raised. I could see people recording me like I was entertainment. Rage trembled under my ribs, hot and sharp. I forced myself to stay steady. You're accusing me, I said, so prove it. Do you have any evidence? Because if you don't, that's defamation. I'll call the police and I'll sue you. His expression flickered, just for a second. Then he snapped, like I'd insulted him. Iris, don't push me, he barked. I'm doing you a favor. I'm trying to help you see reality. If you make this bigger, you're the one who's going to end up humiliated. I didn't blink. I have nothing to hide, I said. But you're spreading lies. And I'm going to make sure you pay for it. Dylan's face flushed with anger. Fine, he hissed, then yanked out his phone like he'd been waiting for this moment. He held it up high, shouting, everyone look. Here's the proof. The crowd leaned in instantly. People craned their necks. A few gasped. On his screen was a video of a woman linking arms with a middle-aged man as they walked into a fancy hotel. The woman's build, hair, and posture looked eerily like mine, enough to make strangers believe it at a glance. That's her, someone said immediately. Wow. She looks so innocent. So that's how she did it. Dylan lowered his phone and smirked at me like he'd won. Well? He said. You wanted proof. Is that enough? Admit it, apologize, and I'll let you go. My mind raced. Something about it felt wrong, not just morally wrong, but technically wrong. The edges were too perfect. The movement too smooth. The kind of proof that fools people who don't know what to look for. A fake. He thought a fabricated clip would take me down. He really underestimated me. I didn't call him out immediately, though. Not yet. Instead, I let my expression crumple. I made my eyes go wet. I took a half step closer and reached for his hand like I was overwhelmed. I was wrong earlier, I said softly, voice trembling on purpose. Thank you. Everyone went quiet. Dylan blinked, thrown off. Thank me for what? I kept my voice shaky, performing for the crowd just enough to make them lean in. For showing me that my image was used without my consent, I said. Please, send me that video. I need to report the person who did this immediately. Dylan's smirk vanished so fast it was almost funny. He yanked his hand back like I'd burned him. What are you talking about? You obviously did that willingly. Stop pretending. I didn't argue. I let my breath hitch. I let my voice rise, loud enough for everyone to hear. If no one believes me, I said, letting it sound desperate, then I'll take drastic steps to prove I'm telling the truth. The crowd reacted instantly, people shifting forward, hands lifting as if to stop me from doing something reckless. Someone said, hey, don't, another voice cut in, calm down. That was all I needed. I wiped my face, straightened, and my voice turned ice cold. I'm calling the police, I said. And I'm contacting the media. Dylan went pale. Are you crazy? He hissed. You can't do that. Do you want everyone to know? You'll embarrass the whole company. I stared at him like he was dirt on my shoe. Why shouldn't I call the police? I asked calmly. You're the one who just paraded this video around like it was real. You're the one who insisted it proved something. So let's get professionals involved. His face twisted. He slammed his foot against his car in frustration. I'm warning you, he snapped. You're not calling anyone today. You work for the company, I won't let you ruin our reputation. I almost laughed. Now he cared about reputation. The truth was, I didn't want a long scene. Pearl was still in the back seat, and every second mattered. I needed this resolved fast. So I pulled out my phone and made a call, loud enough for Dylan to hear. "Mr. Harrison," I said, crisp and controlled. "I need you down here. Immediately. I have a video that needs authentication." Within 10 minutes, a black sedan pulled up. A middle-aged man in a suit stepped out carrying professional equipment. Calm and focused like this was just another Tuesday. "Mr. Harrison, one of the top AI forensics experts in the field." He listened to a quick explanation, then connected his equipment to Dylan's phone. His fingers moved efficiently, eyes scanning data most people didn't even know existed. It didn't take long. He looked up. "This video," he said clearly, "was generated using AI face swapping and motion synthesis technology." The crowd erupted, this time, not at me, but at Dylan. The moment Mr. Harrison said the words, it was like the air snapped in half. "This video," he repeated, calm and unmistakably loud over the rising noise, "was generated using AI face swapping and motion synthesis technology." A beat of silence hit first, the kind where everyone's brain scrambles to catch up, then the crowd erupted so hard it felt physical. "What? So it's fake? He made it up?" Phones that had been aimed at me swung toward Dylan like sunflowers turning. The smugness on his face drained so fast it left something gray underneath, like wet concrete. His cigarette trembled between his lips. He tried to laugh again, but the sound came out wrong, thin and cracked. He sputtered. "That's not what he said. He said it uses AI. That doesn't mean it's fake. AI is in everything. Filters, editing." Mr. Harrison didn't even look at him. He was already scrolling through metadata on his device, the lines of code reflected in his glasses. The clip contained synthesized facial geometry and artificially generated motion vectors, he said, like he was describing the weather. It was rendered using a consumer-grade model, then compressed to hide artifacts. Whoever made it wasn't even careful. A woman in the crowd let out a harsh laugh. "So you tried to ruin her life with a cheap fake?" Dylan's jaw clenched. His eyes flicked to me, sharp and panicked now, like he was searching for the script he'd lost. I could still hear Pearl's breathing behind me, ragged, strained, fighting the next wave. Every second we stood here was a second I might never forgive myself for. I forced my attention away from Dylan's face and turned back toward my car. The back window was fogged slightly from Pearl's breath. When I opened the door, warm air rushed out, thick with adrenaline and that faint sterile scent of the hospital bag she'd clutched to her chest like a lifeline. Her skin looked clammy. Her hair was stuck to her forehead. When her eyes met mine, there was fear there, but also something worse, apology. "I'm sorry," she whispered, as if the whole world had narrowed down to this one sentence. "You don't waste your breath on apologies," I said, keeping my voice steady even as my pulse hammered. "You save it. We're getting you inside." I looked over my shoulder. Dylan was still standing in the street, frozen between humiliation and rage, his Volkswagen angled like a barricade. The crowd had tightened into a ring. People were talking over each other, voices sharp with judgment and delight, because humans loved nothing more than watching someone fall when they climbed on someone else's back. "Move your car," I said again, louder this time. "Now." His eyes flicked to the back seat. For the first time, he actually looked. Really looked. He saw Pearl's face, the way she was bracing her hand against the door, the way her lips had gone pale. Something in him faltered, just for a split second, then pride slammed down like a lid. Pearl was his wife. But Dylan didn't know how to be anyone's husband when there was an audience. He took a step closer, voice rising, frantic now, trying to regain control. "Pearl? What are you doing in her car?" His gaze snapped back to me. "What did you do? Why is my wife in your—" Pearl's voice cut through him, thin but clear. "Dylan," she said, and the way she said his name wasn't love. It was a final warning. He flinched like she'd hit him. I could have stayed and watched that collapse. Part of me wanted to. Not out of cruelty, out of exhaustion. Out of all the times I'd swallowed things at work because making a scene would make me difficult. Out of all the tiny humiliations women were expected to accept with a smile so men like Dylan could keep calling it jokes. But Pearl made a broken sound, and instinct took over. I slammed my door, climbed back into the driver's seat, and reached for my phone again. 911, I said when the operator answered. I rattled off the cross street. We have a pregnant woman in active labor in my car, and another driver is blocking the roadway deliberately. He's escalating. We need an officer and an ambulance now. As I spoke, I put the car in reverse, inching back, scanning the side lanes. There was a gap, tight, barely a shoulder. I could feel the Bentley's engine waiting beneath my foot like an animal straining at a leash. I didn't want to risk it. One wrong move and I'd either hit someone or jolt Pearl into shock. Then a hand thudded against my window. I turned my head and saw Dylan, eyes wild, face flushed. "You think you can just," he hissed through the glass. I cracked the window half an inch. Cold air sliced in. "Get away from my car," I said, low and flat. He leaned closer, breath sour with smoke. "You're not leaving until you fix this," he spat. "You embarrassed me. You made me look like a liar." "You did that all by yourself," I said. His hand shot out again, trying the door handle. Something in me went ice calm. I'd spent years learning how to swallow fear, how to keep my face neutral in rooms where men like Dylan tested boundaries like it was sport. But there was a difference between enduring discomfort and allowing danger. I pressed the lock button again, hard enough to feel it click in my thumb, and spoke without raising my voice. "Touch my car again and I'll add attempted interference with emergency transport to the police report." He froze. Not because he respected the law. Because the word police made him think of consequences that didn't care about his excuses. Behind him, Mr. Harrison stepped forward and lifted his device slightly. "For the record," he called out, addressing no one and everyone, "I've already archived this file, its origin signature, and the transfer history. Deleting it won't help you." Dylan's face jerked toward him. "Transfer history?" He snapped, too fast, too defensive, like his body had confessed before his mouth could stop it. Mr. Harrison's expression didn't change. "Deepfake files don't appear out of thin air," he said. "They come from somewhere. A platform, a drive, a sender. Someone shared this with you." The crowd surged in again, hungry. "Who gave it to you?" Someone yelled. "Yeah," another voice called. "If it's fake, where'd you get it?" Dylan's eyes flashed, fear and fury tangled together. "I found it," he barked. "It was online. Anyone could have found it." Mr. Harrison's fingers moved. "Interesting," he murmured, like he was reading a menu. I didn't have time for this. I turned my attention back to the road, searching for an escape route, but Pearl's hand suddenly clamped onto the back of my seat. "Iris," she whispered, and there was terror in it now. It's happening. I can't." My stomach dropped. I threw on my hazard lights and leaned back, trying to keep my voice gentle. "Pearl, look at me. Breathe. In through your nose. Out through your mouth. You're doing exactly what you need to do." Her eyes were glassy with pain. She nodded once, barely. Somewhere in the chaos, sirens finally cut through, distant at first, then closer, urgent and real. People heard them and shifted instinctively, like sound alone could force them to remember this wasn't entertainment. A police cruiser pushed its way through traffic. An ambulance followed, lights strobing across the crowd's faces and turning everyone briefly into strangers. An officer stepped out, tall and brisk, scanning the scene with the weary competence of someone who'd seen too many people behave badly in public. "What's going on here?" he demanded. Voices exploded at once. Everyone wanted to be the one who explained it, the one closest to the drama, the one who mattered. I opened my door and stepped out carefully, keeping one hand on the frame like I could steady the entire world with my palm. "Officer," I said, forcing my voice through the noise, "I'm transporting a woman in active labor to the hospital." This man, I pointed at Dylan without even looking at him, cut me off repeatedly, forced me to stop, blocked the road, and began making defamatory claims. He also presented a deepfake video as proof and used it to incite harassment from the crowd. "We need the ambulance to access my vehicle immediately." The officer's gaze snapped to Dylan. "Is that true?" Dylan's mouth opened. He tried to smile, like charm was a switch he could flick on whenever he needed it. "Officer, this is all a misunderstanding." She was driving like a maniac. Pearl cried out in the back seat. It wasn't loud. It wasn't theatrical. It was raw and involuntary, a sound that made every hair on my arms stand up. The paramedics didn't wait for anyone's permission. They moved straight to my car, voices steady, hands quick, already assessing, already shifting the situation from chaos to procedure. Dylan saw Pearl. Really saw her now, with the oxygen mask, the strained face, the shaking hands. He staggered back like someone had punched him. "Pearl?" he whispered, and for a heartbeat his voice sounded almost human. "Babe, what? Why didn't you call me?" Pearl's eyes flicked toward him, and the look she gave him wasn't love. It was recognition. It was the moment you realize the person you married was never on your side. "I did," she rasped. "You didn't answer." Something in Dylan's face tightened. Then his gaze cut to me again, fast, accusing, desperate to make this my fault. "You took her," he snapped. "You took my wife. You." The officer stepped between us like a wall. "Sir," he said sharply, "step back. Now." Dylan's lips pressed into a line. He hovered on the edge of obedience, still trying to calculate what the crowd would think if he backed down. Mr. Harrison chose that moment to speak again, calm as a blade. "Officer," he said, lifting his device slightly, "there's more. The file includes embedded source frames. Whoever made it didn't fully remove the original facial map." The officer turned, impatience flickering. "What does that mean?" "It means," Mr. Harrison said, "the deepfake didn't start with her face. It started with someone else's." My breath caught. Not because I was afraid. Because suddenly, all the little things I'd noticed over the past months clicked into place like a lock turning. Dylan's obsession with women's secrets. His hunger to accuse. His constant need to point outward, as if he had to keep everyone looking at someone else so they wouldn't look at him. Mr. Harrison tapped once more, and then he rotated the screen toward the officer and, by accident or design, toward the crowd. The video froze on a single frame. The woman's face, my face, wavered for a moment, like a mask slipping. Then, beneath it, another face surfaced. A man's face. Dylan's face. The crowd went dead quiet in a way that felt almost sacred, like everyone had been slapped at the same time. Someone let out a shocked little sound. A laugh that died immediately. "What the?" "That's him. That's Dylan." Dylan went white. Not pale. White. Like the blood had fled so fast it left him hollow. "That's not," he stammered, backing up. "That's not real. He's doing something to it." Mr. Harrison's voice stayed steady. "The original footage appears to show Mr. Pierce entering the hotel with an older male companion," he said. His face was replaced with Ms. Anderson's to create a false narrative. A low ripple ran through the crowd, equal parts shock and cruel delight. People didn't even know what they were reacting to anymore, whether it was the hypocrisy, the humiliation, or simply the thrill of watching someone get caught. Dylan's eyes darted wildly, searching for escape. For someone to save him. For a new target? Then his gaze locked on Pearl. And that was when I understood something that made my stomach twist. This wasn't just about me. Pearl hadn't been in my backseat by coincidence. She'd been in my backseat because she'd been trying to get away from him. The officer's voice sharpened. "Sir, turn around. Hands behind your back." Dylan's head jerked. "For what?" "I didn't do anything. She's the one speeding." "Sir." The handcuffs clicked like punctuation. Dylan twisted, trying to crane his neck toward Pearl. "Pearl, tell them. Tell them you're my wife. Tell them this is a misunderstanding." Pearl stared past him, not at him. At me. Her eyes were wet. Not with pity for him. With something like shame, layered with relief. "Iris," she whispered, voice shaking as the paramedics adjusted her, "I didn't know it would be you." I stepped closer, keeping my voice low so the crowd couldn't feed on it. "What do you mean?" She swallowed hard, pain rippling through her face. I started looking into things," she breathed. "The women at your office. The rumors. The way it always landed on women. The way he..." She winced, eyes squeezing shut for a second, then forced them open again. He wasn't just talking. He was collecting things. Screenshots. Videos. He'd show me sometimes and laugh, like it was nothing. Like people were toys. My chest tightened. I thought about the private group chats I'd overheard Dylan mention. The way he'd always had receipts. The way he'd used shame like a weapon and called it humor. Pearl's voice trembled. I found a folder. On his laptop. It had names. Your name. Other women. Clips. Fake clips. Real clips. He said it was insurance. He said if anyone ever tried to get him fired, he'd ruin them first. My mouth went dry. The officer nearby was speaking into his radio, calling for additional units. People were still recording, but the vibe had changed. It wasn't fun now. It was something darker. Something that made people shift uncomfortably, like they'd suddenly realized they'd been cheering for cruelty. Pearl gripped my hand suddenly, surprisingly strong. I was trying to get to my sister, she whispered. I was going to leave him. I was going to give the folder to someone. But then I started having contractions and I panicked and I didn't know who to call because he monitors my phone, and I saw you in the lot and her breath hitched. I'm sorry. I used you. The truth hit me like a wave. All this time, I thought I was the main target. The one he wanted to bring down because my car made him feel small. But Dylan didn't hate me because I had a Bentley. He hated me because I didn't react the way he needed me to. Because I didn't fold. Because I didn't feed his hunger. And when he couldn't control me at work, he escalated outside of it. His wife had been trying to leave. And he'd chosen this moment, the moment she was most vulnerable, to turn the world into a stage. My jaw clenched so hard my teeth ached. The paramedic glanced at me. Ma'am, we're taking her now. I nodded, forcing myself to let go of Pearl's hand. Go, I said softly. I'll be right behind you. Pearl's eyes filled. Please, she whispered. Don't let him talk his way out. I won't, I said. And I meant it. The ambulance doors closed. The siren cut back on, and the vehicle pulled away, swallowing Pearl and her pain and her fear into the bright, urgent blur of emergency. The street felt colder without her in my car, like the adrenaline had nowhere to go now. Dylan was still there, cuffed beside the cruiser, breathing hard like a trapped animal. He kept trying to twist his head, trying to scan the crowd, trying to find an angle. His eyes landed on me again. And there it was, pure hate, stripped of humor, stripped of performance. This is your fault, he hissed, low enough that only I could hear. You always had to be better. You always had to make me look. Stop, I said. The word came out quieter than I expected, but it landed like a slap. He blinked, thrown off. I took a step closer, just out of reach, and looked him dead in the eyes. I didn't make you do anything, I said. You chose to build your life by tearing other people down. You chose to treat women like targets. You chose to turn lies into a hobby. And you chose to do it in public, because you thought you were untouchable. His nostrils flared. You think you're so clean? He spat. You think you're some saint? A Bentley doesn't fall out of the sky. A familiar old anger rose, hot and instinctive, but this time I didn't let it take the wheel. Because there was a truth I'd been holding back for too long, not out of shame, but out of caution. Out of that learned reflex to keep my head down so men like Dylan wouldn't feel threatened. And I was done shrinking. It didn't fall out of the sky, I said evenly. I built it. His expression flickered. I didn't need to explain the details to him. Not really. But I let myself taste the honesty anyway. I thought about the nights I'd spent learning code until my eyes burned, about the grants I'd applied for and the rejections I'd swallowed, about the small cybersecurity firm I'd started from my apartment, about the contracts I'd earned because I was good, because I was relentless. The Bentley wasn't proof of sin. It was proof of survival. Mr. Harrison stepped closer, his gaze serious now. Officer, he said, if Pearl is his wife and she's safe, I recommend obtaining a warrant for his devices immediately. Based on what I'm seeing, this isn't a one-off. The officer nodded grimly. Already in motion. Dylan's face contorted. Devices? He barked. You can't take my stuff. That's private. Private. The word almost made me laugh. It was always private when it benefited him. Always public when it could harm someone else. As the officer spoke to Dylan, I turned slightly and saw a familiar figure pushing through the thinning crowd, our HR director, Marlene, face tight with panic, blazer thrown over a pajama top like she'd rushed out of bed. Her eyes landed on me, then on Dylan in cuffs, then on Mr. Harrison's equipment, and something in her expression shifted. Not surprise. Recognition. My stomach sank. A memory surfaced, small, easy to dismiss at the time. Weeks ago, Marlene had stopped by my desk with a too sweet smile and asked casual questions about my side projects, about whether I knew anything about AI stuff. I'd brushed it off. I'd assumed it was corporate curiosity. Now I saw it differently. Marlene moved fast, stepping toward the officer. "This is a misunderstanding," she started, voice too practiced. "Dylan is an employee of ours and—" "Ma'am," the officer cut her off, "step back." Marlene's eyes darted to Dylan. He stared at her like she was a lifeline. And then he did something that surprised even me. He smiled. Not the smug grin from earlier. A thin, desperate smile that said, "If I go down, you're coming with me." "Marlene," he said loudly, almost cheerful, as if he were making conversation in the break room. Tell them you sent me the video. Tell them you said if I could make Iris look dirty, you'd make sure I got that promotion." The street went still again. Marlene froze, her face draining. The officer's head snapped toward her. "Ma'am?" Marlene's mouth opened, but no words came out. Her gaze flicked around wildly, searching for a way to spin it. And in that moment, I understood the full shape of it. This wasn't just one misogynist with a mouth. It was a system that rewarded him. A workplace that let rumors thrive because they were drama, because they were harmless, because they didn't want the hassle of addressing it. A leadership chain that would rather sacrifice women's reputations than confront a man who made the office toxic. Marlene had tried to use Dylan like a weapon. And Dylan, in his panic, had just swung it back. I could have enjoyed that. A part of me wanted to. Wanted to watch her crumble the way she'd watched women crumble with polite indifference. But then Pearl's voice echoed in my head, "Please don't let him talk his way out." This wasn't about revenge. Not anymore. This was about ending it. I stepped forward. My voice didn't shake. "Officer," I said, "I want to file a formal report. Not just about the defamation today. About ongoing workplace harassment. I also want to provide you with information that may relate to a larger pattern of synthetic media being used to target employees. If Pearl's statement about a folder is accurate, there may be multiple victims." Marlene flinched like I'd struck her. Dylan's eyes widened, then narrowed. "You think you're a hero," he sneered. "You think this makes you better." I met his gaze and felt, for the first time, something like peace settle into my ribs. "No," I said quietly. "I think I waited too long." That was the moral line I'd finally crossed, not into cruelty, but into courage. For years, I'd treated men like Dylan as storms to endure. Something you survive by keeping your head down. But storms didn't stop on their own. They stopped when someone built a shelter. When someone warned others. When someone stood in the wind and said, "Enough." The officer nodded once, brisk and decisive, already shifting into action. Another cruiser arrived. Then another. The crowd was dispersing now, shaken by the sudden weight of reality. Mr. Harrison leaned toward me, lowering his voice. "If you want," he said, "I can help you preserve your devices and communications as evidence. You did everything right today." I exhaled slowly. My hands were still trembling, but it wasn't fear now. It was aftershock. It was my body catching up to what my mind had already accepted. "Thank you," I said. "And thank you for coming so fast." He gave me a small, knowing look. "You said the phrase." I blinked. "The phrase?" "When you said you'd take drastic steps," he said softly. "That's the phrase we agreed on. You didn't think I'd miss it, did you?" My breath caught. A recontextualized flash hit me. Weeks ago, the quiet meeting in a sterile office, the conversation I'd had with an investigator about deepfake harassment cases on the rise, the way I'd offered to help because I couldn't stand the idea of women being ruined by synthetic lies. I hadn't told anyone at work. I hadn't wanted it attached to my name. I thought staying quiet was safer. But I'd been part of something bigger already. I just hadn't admitted it to myself. I didn't even realize I said it on purpose, I murmured. Mr. Harrison's expression softened. You did, he said. Your instincts are sharper than you think. I swallowed hard, feeling something in my chest loosen. Dylan was being guided into the cruiser, still talking, still trying to spit poison through the bars of consequence. You're all falling for it, he shouted. She planned this. She's manipulating you. She. The door shut. His voice disappeared. The street, slowly, returned to being just a street. I drove to the hospital with my hazard lights still blinking, following the ambulance like a promise I wasn't going to break. The city lights blurred past, and my mind kept replaying the moment the deepfake peeled away to reveal Dylan's face beneath mine. He tried to weaponize shame against me. And in the end, his own mask had been the one that slipped. At the hospital, everything moved fast and slow at once, hallways, bright lights, clipped voices. I gave my statement to an officer in a quiet room that smelled like disinfectant. My hand steadied as I spoke, not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. Hours later, a nurse found me sitting on a plastic chair, my phone dead in my lap, my spine aching with exhaustion. Pearl's asking for you, she said gently. My throat tightened. I followed her down the corridor, my footsteps too loud in the quiet. Pearl lay in the bed, face washed clean, hair pulled back, eyes tired but alive. There was a softness to her now, like pain had burned something false away. In her arms was a tiny bundle, pink and wrinkled and real. So real it made my eyes sting. Pearl looked at me and let out a shaky breath. It's a boy, she whispered. I stepped closer, careful, as if the moment might shatter if I moved too fast. He's beautiful, I said, and I meant it. Pearl's eyes filled. I named him Miles, she said quietly. Because. I kept thinking about distance. About how far I needed to go to get away. My throat tightened. You did, I said. You got here. Her gaze dropped, shame flickering. I'm sorry you were pulled into it. I shook my head slowly. I'm sorry I thought ignoring it would keep me safe, I admitted. It didn't. It just gave him room. Pearl's fingers tightened around the baby's blanket. They searched his laptop, she whispered. They found the folder. A cold calm settled into me. How many? I asked. Pearl swallowed hard. More than I can count. I closed my eyes for a second, feeling the weight of all those unseen women, names on files, faces in clips, reputations dangled like bait. Then I opened my eyes and made myself say the words that mattered. We'll get them help, I said. All of them. Not just me. Not just you. Pearl nodded, tears slipping down her temples into her hair. Thank you, she whispered. I looked at Miles again, tiny fist curled, mouth pursed like he was already dissatisfied with the world he'd entered, and something inside me shifted, quiet and permanent. This was what growth felt like. Not triumphant. Not glamorous. Just clear. I left the hospital at dawn. The sky was washed pale, the city still half asleep. My phone buzzed the second I plugged it into the car, missed calls, messages, a voicemail from Marlene's number I didn't even open. I sat behind the wheel and stared at the steering wheel logo, thinking about how Dylan had used my car as a symbol, proof, in his mind, that I must be dirty. He'd been wrong. It had never been about a car. It had been about control. I started the engine, the low purr steady beneath me, and pulled out of the parking lot with the sunrise breaking like a clean line across the horizon. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was running. I felt like I was going somewhere.